The Nokia 8 Sirocco is, in my opinion, HMD's best effort in the flagship segment so far. So let's talk about why it's my favorite recent Nokia device and why it ultimately failed to make an impact. But before we do that, why haven't you subscribed yet? Seriously, I forgive you, but Nooni? I can't promise anything about him. So the Nokia 8 Sirocco was announced in February 2018 and then released about 2 months after that. It was HMD's first proper flagship device. And according to leaks and rumors, it was actually supposed to launch about 6 months before that as the Nokia 9. Due to manufacturing difficulties and delays, Nokia Mobile decided to release it with an iconic nameplate and change its category from being a Nokia 9 to being the Nokia 8 Sirocco. In case you don't know what the Nokia Sirocco nameplate is all about, let me brief you as quickly as possible. These series of devices were very high-end devices from Nokia back in the days, and they were all about making a fashion statement. They represented Nokia's very best hardware and manufacturing capabilities, and they were made out of the best materials. Back then, the front of these devices was made out of sapphire glass, and the rest of the body was actually made out of solid steel. If you are in the market for one of these devices, the last thing you care about was the specs. So no, battery capacity, screen resolution, processor, power, speed, performance, that absolutely didn't matter to you if you were in the segment for that device. You were simply looking for exclusivity, and that phone lineup was absolutely beautiful. They were also sliding phones, and in my opinion, they probably had the best sliding mechanism to be ever put on a phone. Just super satisfying. So yeah, to sum it up, they were pretty much just a testament to how good Nokia's hardware and design was at the time. Oh, and they cost around $1,000 back in 2006. Now that you understand this iconic nameplate, this gives you a very good idea about why Nokia decided to call the new device the Nokia 8 Sirocco. This device is, in my opinion, above all else, all about the design, and it really shows. I personally think the design and the hardware of this thing is leagues above the competition. And yeah, that includes the very expensive iPhones. It has the stainless steel frame around it that is so thin, it almost feels like a razor. On top of that, the frame is also chamfered. The front glass panel also curves perfectly into the sides of the frame. Whether you're a fan of these curved displays or not, it really doesn't matter, because this thing still looks stunning. The back panel, on the other hand, is also made out of glass, in a glossy black finish, which is an homage to the original Sirocco. Seriously, if there's any device that actually looks more like jewelry than a phone, this is definitely it. Which was actually maybe a bit to its detriment at certain times, but we'll cover that later. Oh, and comparing this phone to the Galaxy S6 Edge, because they both have curved displays, is the same as trying to compare a tuk-tuk to a Bentley because they both have round wheels. Seriously. And yet, of course, it definitely happened. Other than the design, the specs on the Sirocco were also pretty decent. It didn't come out with the Snapdragon 845 as most people would have hoped, but the Snapdragon 835 was more than capable. You never really faced any performance issues when you're using this phone. I personally don't remember ever using it and thinking I wish it had better performance. But then again, if you're a spec hunter, this would have definitely bothered you. The phone also came out with 6 gigs of built-in RAM, which was about on par with the best flagships back then. It had 2 rear cameras, a main 12 megapixel sensor, which was identical to the one found on the Pixel, and then a 13 megapixel telephoto camera, capable of 2 times zoom. The camera performance out of the box, on the other hand, was a bit lacking. No optical image stabilization on the main camera, and the images turned out to be a bit too soft, even though the colors were very nice and natural. I immediately installed Google Camera on it, which turned it into a very capable shooter. Here are some sample images I captured with the Sirocco. Other than that, I really appreciate how compact this phone is. You could easily use it with one hand, and it easily fits into any pocket. The fingerprint on the back was also quite fast and reliable, and you can use it to swipe down the notification bar. And battery life was also quite okay. It only had a 3260 mAh capacity, but it could last you until the end of the day, but nothing really more than 1 day. So what were the issues with this phone? Well, you can't really create a device this thin without skimping on some ergonomics. And while the design was stunning, having these super thin edges on the frame poke into your hand and make it feel a bit uncomfortable to hold, especially if you use it without a case. The OLED display, while providing very nice saturation, colors and outdoor visibility, had the very notable color shift on the edges of the curve. This is something that really bothers you at first, especially if you web browse and view a lot of white pages. But your brain kind of tunes it out after a while. The processor, as discussed, was 1 year old at the time, and the camera performance out of the box was a bit mediocre. Having said all of that, I think the real reason this phone didn't succeed can be blamed 100% on the marketing of this device. Think about it this way: when you create a device with its design as the strongest suit, why on earth wouldn't you try to market it for that specific aspect? This honestly really baffled me. This phone doesn't have a single video talking about its design prowess. No interview with designers, no behind the scene manufacturing, nothing. The main promo video for this device was so unfocused, you could literally replace the 8 Sirocco with any other Nokia device and nobody would even notice. It almost feels like they were embarrassed by it or something. I just want you to imagine what kind of party we'd be having if this design came out of Apple. We'd have 20 videos of Johnny Ive talking about how Apple invented stainless steel, how he was inspired by the wind or a classic supercar. But instead, the promo video's message was that it's a good phone for ordinary people. And when the message is this unfocused, any reviewer would pick this phone up and then complain about the specs versus price aspect. You end up losing the narrative and then losing the mind share. So the end result is nobody gives this phone a real chance. So the big question you might be asking yourself is, why am I a big fan of the 8 Sirocco? It's because for me, personally, design is literally the most important aspect in a phone. The only reason that would prevent me from picking up such a device is that it has a major flaw that I can't live with. But as I just demonstrated, this phone gets all the basics decently well. Not superbly, but not badly enough for me to look elsewhere. And that design also makes me forgive some of its flaws very easily. So yeah. So what are your thoughts on the Nokia 8 Sirocco? Have you used it? And if so, what do you think about it? Let's discuss in the comments down below. PS, apparently there's going to be a Nokia 9 Sirocco. Count me in. So that's it from me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please don't forget to share, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.